In this video, we're going to show you how to turn Likert Scale data into numbers when you've collected text data on your survey, but you want it to be recoded into numbers for your analyses. I'll show you a couple other things too. With this survey, we happen to have collected some demographic data. We don't really care about the date, but the grade level of the students, the gender, and the race. And the race is in different columns because we let the students check all that apply. They could choose more than one race. And when you do that, instead of radio buttons, you get a separate column for each race. But to deal with the data, I just want to show you a little trick in case you end up with data like that in your survey. I'm going to select a column after the races and insert. So I get a new column. And I'll label it race. And then I'm going to bring all the race data into one column by using a formula that concatenates, and I can't spell concatenate, so there's another way to do it. You can do it with the ampersand. The concatenate function does the same thing if you can spell concatenate. So you start with equals and click in the first Asian cell and above the 7, click in the next one and click in the next one and click and click and click and click and then return. Now these cells were empty, so it concatenated everything from all these cells, but there was only one thing and it brought it here. And now if I don't think double clicking will work because that only works when the cell to the left is full, but I'm going to try it. Oh, it worked. Okay. And now some students have more than one race in there, but that's fine. At least now all my races are in the same column. So if I want to deal with the race variable, I now have one variable for race. So that's how you do that. And see that the formula incremented each time the first one was row 2, the next one was row 3. The formula increments as it goes down, unless you put dollar signs on the numbers, and then it wouldn't. Okay, we are now ready to learn how to recode this data, but before you change any data, you always want to make a copy so you can go back to the original when you mess up the data you're changing. And just don't ever trust yourself. Keep your original. So if I hold the control key down in the bottom left corner of the keyboard and then drag this, it makes a copy. Or you can do copy, click up here in the corner, copy the whole page and paste it. But I'd like to do that control drag. And then if you double click on the tab, it selects it and you can rename it. So we're going to rename this recoded data. Okay. Now, to recode this, we're going to end up with 3 tabs. Now we're okay. We can do it here. The first thing that we need is to know which of these questions are worded in the positive versus the negative. So I'm going to add a row and I'm going to look at the questions, and I guess I better wrap the text so I can actually see the whole question. Okay, I selected and double clicked on the line between the rows, and that opens the row big enough to see what's in there. So if the question is worded positively, I'm going to put a P up here, and if it's worded negatively, I'm going to put an N. Because when we recode, the ones that are worded positively, we want strongly agree to be 5, but if it's worded negatively, we want strongly disagree to be 5. So I get good grades in math. That is a positive, and I just made these questions up. This was really a different survey. I enjoy math, positive. I see the purpose of learning math, that's positive. I have a strong fear of taking math tests. I would say that is a negative. My homework is too challenging. That is a negative. I enjoy the challenge of learning math. That's a positive. I would like a career as a scientist, mathematician, or engineer. Statistics do not make sense to me is a negative. Okay, so when we recode, we need to recode the positives a certain way and the negatives a different way. Now, there are several different ways to do this. One way to do this is to select the positives because they're going to get worded a certain way, but I'm going to show you a safe way to do this. The unsafe way to do it is to select the columns with P at the top and go to Find and Select and choose Replace, and then put in strongly agree and replace that with a 5. Now, the reason why this is unsafe, this will work, but if you do things in the wrong order, like if you were to change agree first to 4, you would have strongly for and strongly dis-for, and you'd have to realize it, and it's difficult to change it back. Also, if you accidentally recoded one of the negatively worded questions the wrong way, fixing it is a tedious, confusing thing. So if you're absolutely sure you're going to do everything in the right order and never make a mistake, this is okay. But if there's any chance you might mess up, fixing a mess up when you recode this way is extremely difficult compared to this other way I'm going to show you. So here's the other way. We need to add 5 rows. Somewhere we need to have the strongly agree, agree, disagree, etc., because we're going to use an if statement and compare what's in the cell to the possibilities for what's in the cell. And I always just put everything at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The reason I put everything at the top is because I reuse my templates. Once I write a formula, I can reuse it with a different survey or a post version of this survey, or with this survey given to a different set of people. And you don't know how much data you're going to have. So if you put your formulas at the top, your data is always below it, so it doesn't matter how far down the data goes. So we need strongly agree. I'm going to copy it out of here to guarantee that it's written exactly the same way, because when we compare, oh, look right there, 3 in a row. What? Copy, paste, and then I need a strongly disagree. There's one. We need it to be exactly the same because we're going to compare. So we're going to compare to these in this order for the positively worded, and for the negatively worded, I need them in the opposite direction. So I'll just put this up here. It could be anywhere up here, because we're going to write our formula to compare into these cells. And another advantage to doing it this way instead of simply doing a find and replace, you can check to make sure that everything is comparing the way that it should, because this is kind of like you're showing your work. Once you find and replace, you can't look at it and know what it used to be or how you did it. But here you can check your work. So we need to write an if formula, and what we're going to do is we're going to look back into the original data. So equals if the first cell under I get good grades. So click over here. Excel writes the formulas for you. Okay, that L2. If L2 equals, and now come back over here, if it equals strongly agree, that's what we're going to compare it to. And when we paste this down and over, we want it to stay in L1. So we need dollar signs on both the L and the 1 because this is our comparison to strongly agree cell. So in the if statement, you tell it, if get what's in this cell, and that's supposed to be an equal sign, but I hit the wrong key, so let me fix it. If L2 on that page equals what's in here, which is strongly agree, and see how it makes it blue to match that? That's something Excel does to make it easier to check. Now we put a comma and tell it, what do you want me to do if it equals what's in L1? And what I want is, I want a 5. And then you put comma, and what do you want if it didn't match? Well, if it didn't match, I'm going to do another if. If it didn't match, then if what's in L2, and don't worry, you only have to write this formula once, what's in L2 equals agree, then comma, give me a 4. And I need this to have dollar signs because I'm going to, no matter where I am on the page, I want to match into L2. I don't want that to increment. And if it doesn't match, then if L2 equals neutral, and we need dollar signs. You'll probably forget one of your dollar signs because it's just a tedious thing and it's hard to remember everything when something's tedious. So get in the habit of going back and checking your dollar signs. So if it equals neutral, comma, give me a 3. If none of that worked, then if L2 equals this, give me a 2. And this has to have dollar signs. See, I almost forgot, but I would have known when my formulas didn't work that I probably forgot a dollar sign. Okay, so if, and that's green and that's green. And now, if there were no blanks, we could just put a 1. Like if none of that worked, give me a 1, because the only possibility would be strongly disagree. But we don't want to code the blanks as strongly disagree, and we do have blanks. So we need another if. This equals, click back to here, strongly disagree with the dollar sign. Comma for what do you want? Then we want a 1, and now the comma, if none of that is true, well, if none of that is true, it must be a blank, because those are all the possibilities. So we want it to return a blank. And for that, just put quote, quote, because it'll return what's between those quotes, and there is nothing between those quotes, so it will return a blank. Now we need a end parenthesis for everything, every open parenthesis here. And rather than count them, I just take the error message. And because the error message says you want me to fix this for you, and yes, I'd rather the computer fix it for me. So that is our formula, and that should work for all the P's. So you can pull it across, or let's copy paste, because we got to be careful and make sure we only put this in the P's. And then we'll check it after we finish this formula. Well, here's one way to check it. When you're in a cell, go up here and click, and it highlights for you where you're checking, and we're still here. We didn't like shift, which we would do if we forgot a dollar sign. When we pull it down, we still could have a mistake if we missed a dollar sign on a number. But now let's write the formula for the negative. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the positive formula in there. And then when I click up here and it highlights these for me, it will rewrite the formula. If I slide, see if you can get a hold of this, just slide it over there. I want this over here and this over here, this one here and this one, whoops, I dropped it. And this one here, okay. So that rewrites the formula for us. See, it's looking in, this is column O. And it changed all these to O's, and if we have the dollar signs right before, they are right here. So it's going to compare with this order on the negatively worded. So we want that in here and in here. Okay, now if we did things right, if we have all our dollar signs right, when we pull down, it should work. And let's check. This is a positively worded, and it's still looking in the right place. That must have been a blank, and it was, I remember that it was. And let's take this one and check. Yep, it's checking in the right cells. So now we just pull this down, and you pull it the whole way down. I've got like 4,000 rows here, so I'm not going to show you. So there you have it. And then what you want to do, because you've got formulas in here, well, first check. Let's just go randomly check something. Is column N, let's see, 4 is agree. Do we have agree, 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 neutral? Yep, we do. You know, just check a few. I mean, we checked the formula, and the formula was right, but it's easy to fool yourself into thinking things are right. So, you know, check as many ways as you can. So this is correct. And like I said, the nice thing about this over find and replace, for one thing, you can use this formula again with a different survey, just pasting the data in here. You know, as long as you have everything lined up, it'll just recode it for you. And also you can check to make sure you did it right. If somebody comes along and notices, oh, that should have been positively, that's not negative. Having a fear of math tests is a positive thing, or, you know, if something like that happens, then all you have to do is change the formula. You don't have to recode, which can be, when you're trying to recode numbers into other numbers, it can be really confusing. So this lets you see what you did, it lets you use it again, and it lets you fix your mistakes easily. So this, okay, before you start analyzing your data, what you want to do is make another copy of this. So I hold down the control key and just slide this, and it makes a copy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the formulas out of here, because when I work with my data, I want to work with numbers, not with formulas. It's too dangerous to work with formulas, and it slows the computer down. And when I say dangerous, what I mean is if you start moving these things around, you're moving the formulas around, so you don't want to do that. So when you've got your data the way you want it, this will be our working data that we're going to work with. So let's select the whole thing up in the corner, do copy, and then let's paste. This clipboard with 1, 2, 3 gives you just the values instead of formulas, or you can do paste special and choose values. Either way, they do the same thing. Okay, now when you click in a cell, there's no formula. A 4 is a 4. We don't want this up here when we're working. Yeah, I might want to keep the negatively just in case I need to know, but we don't need this. So let's delete that. We've got race all in one column now, so let's get these extra columns out of here. And there we have a nice little data set to work with. Now I wanted to explain the if statement that we used in more detail. but I didn't want to do that while I was showing you how to use it in case some people just don't want to hear the detail. But here's how the if statement works. It's a pretty simple statement. We just used a complicated version of it, but all formulas start with equals. If, and then open parenthesis. All formulas have this structure. And the simple version of the if statement, which if you understand that, the complicated version would make more sense to you. If, we can do whatever we want here. Let's do an if statement on race. And maybe we want to make a variable for white and non-white. So we could say if D3 equals, anytime you are writing text, you need to have it in quotes. I must have clicked somewhere. If D3 equals, quote, white, and then comma, what you want it to say. If it equals white, let's say white. And then comma, what if it doesn't equal white? What do you want it to say? And let's just say non-white. And close parenthesis. So we basically used this formula for if. It's just we kept going for what we wanted to do if we didn't get what we're comparing. But the simple version here, if it equals white, say white. Otherwise, say non-white. And if we pull that down. Okay, so it's just changing all the non-whites into non-white and giving us the white. So that's how the if statement works. And what we did, because we didn't have a single thing we wanted if it didn't equal strongly agree, we just kept going. For the what to do if you don't get what we match, we had another if.